Hey, John here with your Tuesday Blues, and in this lesson, we're going to break down the first 12 bars of that double drop D thing you just heard. We keep things nice and easy in the first 12 bars and then turn up the heat quite a bit on the repeat. And premium members will have access to that repeat with slow note-for-note instruction, plus additional lesson materials like downloadable PDF and Guitar Pro tab files, and the incredibly useful SoundSlice interactive tab player for this lesson. Plus, you have access to the entire library of premium lessons. If you're not already a premium member, you can find out how to join at the link in the description. But now let's get on with the lesson. We're in double drop D for this tune. So let's talk about what that is. Well, in standard tuning, our outer two strings are both tuned to E, and our fourth string is tuned to D. What we're going to do is bring those two strings that are normally tuned to E down a whole step into D, and it just opens up some really cool things that you can play with, like some open ringing stuff over a D chord. So it kind of lowers the notes that we have access to just by taking the sixth string down a whole step, and you can use this fourth string as a reference pitch when you're tuning, if you're tuned to standard tuning, that is. And then you can also use the fourth string and the first string, right? All right, and a little tip that might help even further is to use the octave on the sixth string and tune to the sixth string. So from low to high, we've got D, A, didn't change from standard, D, didn't change from standard, G from standard, B from standard, and then D that we dropped. This is built around a simple idea. We're using a really straightforward and sort of stripped down picking technique to execute this simple idea. So let's start taking this thing note for note here. We start out with the thumb taking care of the bass on the sixth string, and then the index finger on the first string. So we just do a 1 and 2. For beat 2, we do this little sliding move where we hold this. You can think of it as a D7, but listen to this when I play this D7. Sounds kind of cool. We've got something interesting happening there on the first string, and that's because we've tuned this down to D, so we're actually playing an E on the first string. Not what we need for an D7, but what we can do here is just pick that up, let that ring. It's a D note. We're going to be playing this in D, so it really sounds good to have that D note ringing and kind of droning on, as you'll see as we move through the parts here. So that's what we're doing. Open sixth string, open first string, and then I'm brushing through with my thumb. This isn't done with heavy attack or anything crazy big movement, just a gentle push through strings 3 and 2. And as I strike it, I slide, right? And we're trying to make that a real fluid slide, right? It's real fluid. It's one motion. Watch my thumb and my hand almost seem to be linked together in their movement. Right? And that's what we're looking for. So back to the part. Come back and do that little pick on the open first string with the index finger. After your little brush, and then back and brush, but this time go back to the D shape here. Really a D7 because we've got that C note in there, right? That would be the minor seventh from the key of D, so that gives us a real dominant bluesy sound there. Dominant flat 7, minor 7. All right, so then after we get back to this, brush up through that top string, pick that top string one more time, and then we're going to do this cool little bass tag. We play the F on the fourth string, and I'm picking that with my index finger. I'm really only going to use my thumb and index finger as far as picking throughout this piece. So we play the F, and then the B, and open D. Right? And then we just cycle through that part again. And the only thing that we're going to change is we're going to alter the ending every other time. right, so this time around, and you can do this a few different ways, but all I chose to do there was just play that a little more solidly. We didn't put the triplet on the end, 4 triplet like we did before. We just did 4 and then we just go back 1 and 2 and 3. Let's loop it. Alright, and it looks like we want to change that up a little bit, and maybe on that second repeat there we do a little more, you know, repeated bend, just to add some interest to that. It might sound like this. This is the first time. Let's do it again. So see how we can put a little bit of a different ending on each one of these? Just kind of stay nice and loose, stay in the groove, and just generally keep this thumb and index finger thing happening. And then on beat 4, add a little something different maybe each time. That's up to you. It's a great spot to experiment a little bit, and these are a couple of ideas that you can use. But after we do that 4 times, we're going to encounter a chord change. So now let's start unpacking what we can do over the G chord. Alright, for this part, we're going to have to alter what we might normally think of as a G chord. If you played a G chord like this, check this out. Right? Definitely some different things happening there. That's because we've got both of these strings, 6 and 1, tuned down. Right? So this gives us a different chord, and what we're really looking for is just a straight up G chord, and we're going to play around with some G7 sounds as well. So how I'm doing that is sliding into the 5th fret. Remember, this string, 6th string, has been lowered a full step, so what normally was a G is now up by that same amount that we lowered the string. So that happens now, the 5th fret. And you see the thumb hitting the bass, and I am sliding into it for fun, but you don't have to. And then I'm brushing up across the top 2 strings. 3rd string will work too. It's tuned to G, so this is perfectly normal to hear it in there. And that's the rhythm that I'm doing. And on that last part, all I'm doing is moving from the 5th fret on the 1st string down to the 3rd fret. Now, that chord might not be super comfortable for you. I love playing my G like this, you know, with my ring finger on the bass note and my little finger on the 1st string. A lot of reasons that I do that. Of course, if I'm strumming along, you might see me do it like this, but for finger picking and a lot of bluesy stuff, this form sure comes in handy, and this is a case where it does as well. But if that doesn't work for you, you can certainly work around that. So all I'm doing there is just dropping away and not holding that G note on the 6th string after I punch it. And then I'm just moving my hand up the fretboard and still doing that same brush up. Just moving that ring finger away, okay? And maybe just putting that, if I'm getting super relaxed with it, I can introduce that note, which is an F note. Sounds really cool. We're playing it here, right? Which makes this a G7, G major, G7. Great note to dip below like that as well. So generally, that's the intro here. And then what we're going to do is go back to this sort of sliding thing. And what's interesting here is we played this over D. We kind of came home to the D7 chord here, but really, if you slide up, what you have here is a B note, a D, and then another D. on top. And these work really well in G because they are from a G major chord, right? Or even a G7 as the case may be. So what we're going to do is use that to our advantage here and kind of bring back that move. Here's what it sounds like. All right, so after this part, I'm sliding into, just like before, and then doing 2 brush ups. Then I'm repeating that. And then now we can go back to our main part. Right, with whatever ending with that little bass tag that you like. Once we wrap up after revisiting our main theme for 2 times, we're going to come into the 5 chord part. And this can be a little bit tricky. We've got a very difficult stretch where we're going to bar the top 4 strings at the 2nd fret, right? So you want to make sure that you can hear this. But then we're going to reach out with the little finger and play the 5th fret. And that's definitely a difficult stretch. If you can do it, great. If not, here's a quick little workaround. I'd like for you to work up to this, and I have a lesson that I'll link that might help you improve your stretch on this chord. You're going to miss some of the ringing that you heard just now. It won't sound as connected, but if you just can't get it, I still want you to play this part. So let's try this. And it sounds more broken that way, but that's okay. You hear that sound in the blues and whatever gets the notes, right? And the reason that I think this might be a little bit easier is I'm not planted on the 2nd fret. You know, I'm bringing that finger up the fretboard physically a little bit when I play that 5th fret on the 1st string. It doesn't mean that I'm playing different notes here. I'm just playing the notes differently. And hopefully that will help you accommodate this chord if it's difficult for you. But that being said, I really want you to try to get to this. All right, so now once we can do that, or we have our way of playing this part down, that's what we're doing. Basically just hitting the bass, which is the 5th string, and then it's all brush ups from there. And we end with that bar. See why it's important to have a good bar there? Because we pick up twice during this part. And after that 2nd time, then we're ready to release and start the turnaround. Let's play into the turnaround from our A part. All right, so after we end the A part here, I'm going to slide up on the 4th string and the 1st string. All right, these are the same note. This is a G on the 4th string and a G on top, an octave apart. Right, so it's got a cool sound to it. So I'm going to pinch these 2 strings, thumb and index finger on top, and then I'm going to drop down to the F, that's at the 3rd fret, the E at the 2nd fret, and then open 1st string on the way to 3rd fret on the 5th string, it's a C note, and then into the D. So here's what we have. All right, that little open string can feel a little bit tricky to slip in there, but I want it to sound really natural. Let's just stop there and hear it. And you're going to want to make sure and let that ring. So did you notice when I fret, I'm really making a point to arch up and over so I don't bump into that 1st string that's ringing. Having it ring across this sounds really cool. All right, from here, couple of these. And we're done. Thanks for checking out this video. If you learned something from the lesson, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And if you want to go deeper and grab those additional lesson materials and part 2 of this lesson, then check out the link right over here and become a member of BGI. I hope to see you inside BGI. Until then, practice smart and play on.